My husband, Alex, and my cousin, Olivia, were the two most important people in my life. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was a slow, calculated theft of my future, hidden beneath a veil of California sunshine and family dinners. After discovering their affair and the cynical destruction of my trust, I didn't scream or confront them. Instead, I crafted a silent, elaborate strategy to reveal their deepest secrets and ensure the consequences were perfectly tailored to their own deceit. The plan culminated in a major reversal at their highly publicized wedding, transforming my heartbreak into a calculated act of justice, ultimately leading me to reclaim my peace and self-worth. I used to believe that some lies were necessary to maintain the peace. I was wrong. The biggest lie wasn't the one Alex told me. It was the one I told myself. The one where I convinced myself that my life, built on California dreams and a diamond ring, was unbreakable. It broke. It shattered into dust I couldn't sweep away. And the funny thing is, the person who helped me pick up the pieces, my cousin Olivia, was the one who held the hammer all along. If you have ever felt that cold, hollow spot in your gut when the truth hits you, then you know this story. But here's the thing, I need to know you hear it all the way through. If you think you know what heartbreak is, subscribe now. Don't think about it, just click it. Because if you scroll past and don't finish this, it means you're still living in their world. And if you refuse to subscribe, fine. Go to the comments and tell me why you're still afraid of the truth. 3 years ago. That's where the light was. Alex and I were the couple, the envy of our social circle. We had the perfect house in Orange County, the kind of life where the sunlight always felt expensive. He was ambitious, a rising star in real estate, and I was his foundation, his quiet strength. I saw the intensity in his eyes when he talked about his future, and I loved him for it. I loved the way he promised me forever on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, the ring a blinding promise. I was certain, Olivia, my cousin, she moved to California for a fresh start just 6 months before the proposal. She was my confidant, my maid of honor, my chosen sister. We'd spend hours on my patio, wine in hand, dissecting wedding plans, future children, and the small, beautiful anxieties of building a life. She knew Alex better than anyone, or so I thought. I told her everything, every doubt, every hope, every single detail about the man I was going to marry. I handed her the blueprint to my entire world. But something shifted, subtle at first, like a single, out-of-tune note in a perfect symphony. It started with the calls. Alex would leave the room to take them. Work, he'd mutter, avoiding my gaze. But the calls were late. Always after 10 p.m. And his voice was low, careful. At first I dismissed it. Stress from the new deal. Then came the little signs. The faint, sweet smell of a new cologne, something I hadn't bought. A new shirt, a deep, sapphire blue that he insisted was old. And the texts, he'd hold his phone like a precious, fragile secret. Face down, always. One Thursday night. We were watching a movie. My head on his shoulder. Everything felt warm, familiar. His phone buzzed. Once. Then again. He tensed, his body going rigid beside me. He didn't reach for it. He let it sit there. And that's when I knew. The lie wasn't about a new deal or a late night at the office. It was about someone else. The following week felt like I was walking on shattered glass. I was searching for proof, desperate to be proven wrong. I started observing him, and the man I loved was gone, replaced by a nervous, twitching stranger. He claimed to be at a client dinner downtown. I drove past the restaurant. His car wasn't there. I drove home, adrenaline pumping cold through my veins. The house felt huge, silent, accusing. I went straight to the laundry room, that mundane space where secrets often hide. I found his wallet in his jacket pocket. I wasn't looking for a number, I was looking for a receipt. Something concrete. I pulled out a crumpled strip of paper. The location, the Mariner's Inn. A boutique hotel, far too expensive for a casual work meeting. It wasn't the hotel that struck me, it was the itemized charge. 2 glasses of Merlot. Alex only ever drank Cabernet. I put the wallet back. My hand was shaking so violently I had to lean against the wall. I didn't confront him that night. Confrontation was for the innocent. I was becoming something else. Calculated. That Friday, Olivia came over for our ritual wine night. We sat on the patio. She was laughing, telling me about a new man she'd met. Tall. Handsome. She paused, looking at me with those wide, earnest eyes. You look pale, honey. Everything okay? I forced a smile. Fine. Just tired. Alex has been stressed. Then she did it. She reached out and placed her hand on mine. And as her fingers closed around my own, I saw it. A glint. A tiny, silver bracelet. Intricate. Expensive. I recognized it immediately. Alex had shown me that very bracelet online 2 weeks ago. He'd claimed he was thinking of buying it for me as a surprise engagement gift. I looked from the bracelet to her eyes. The smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a mask. And I realized my lie was about to meet theirs. I took a deep breath, and the cold air of truth hit me. The secret wasn't 2 people. It was 3. And the one person I trusted was the lock on the cage. I excused myself to the kitchen. I needed air. I needed to not be in the presence of that lie. The world had gone silent, replaced only by the roaring sound of my own blood. I returned, composed, a mask firmly in place. I watched her that night. Olivia. The way she unconsciously touched the bracelet, the way she steered the conversation away from Alex's whereabouts, the way she offered too perfect comfort about my stressed fiancé. It was an Oscar-worthy performance of sisterly concern. Days later. I couldn't sleep. The bracelet was a burning image behind my eyelids. I hadn't said a word to Alex. Silence, I discovered, was a powerful weapon. It made them sweat. It forced their hands. He became increasingly solicitous, bringing me flowers, offering massages, trying to blanket his guilt in manufactured kindness. But the kindness was just another lie. He was managing the crisis, not loving his partner. I decided I wouldn't seek proof. I would create the opportunity. I told Alex I was going out of town for the weekend. A girls' trip with an old college friend. I packed a suitcase, sent photos from the freeway, and even booked a cheap Airbnb 3 hours north to lend credibility to the location tracker I knew he checked. But I didn't stay. That night, I drove back. I parked my car 6 blocks away and walked the rest. The house was dark. Too quiet. I let myself in through the garage. I crept up the stairs, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I paused outside his home office. The door was slightly ajar. I could hear voices. Low. Intimate. And then, I heard her laugh. It was Olivia. That specific, throaty laugh she always used when she was genuinely happy. I didn't move. I stood in the shadow, a silent, unseen witness to the destruction of my life. Alex, you can't stay much longer. Liv. She's due back tomorrow morning. Olivia. I know. God, I hate this. But the bracelet. She didn't say anything. Did she? My breath hitched. My fingers went cold. Alex. No. She's oblivious. She thinks I'm stressed. It's almost too easy. She trusts you completely. That's the part that hurts. Olivia. Stop. Don't start with the guilt. You want her perfect little life, but you want me to be in it. It's not my fault she's so blind. Besides, when is the engagement finally ending? I can't stand another dinner pretending I'm planning her wedding. Alex, soon. I just need the merger to finalize. The money is tied up in the house. I need her to sign the final refinancing papers first. Then I'll end it. We'll be set. We can finally stop meeting at the Mariners. I stood there, not just hearing a confession of cheating, but a financial plot. They weren't just sleeping together. They were plotting to use me, to steal the house equity, and then discard me like trash. Betrayal wasn't a mistake. It was a business plan. I backed away silently. No slamming doors. No confrontation. My vision tunneled. The air tasted like rust and ash. I got back to the car, and I sat there, shaking, until the sun began to paint the sky with a pale, indifferent pink. I didn't cry. Crying was a weakness. Crying was what they expected. Instead, a profound, terrifying clarity settled over me. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted me ruined. And they had underestimated the wreckage they had created. I looked at the house, the symbol of my perfect, fraudulent life. They thought they were playing chess with my life. But what they didn't realize was that they just handed the queen to the most patient player. I now had their entire plan. And my silence? That was the perfect weapon. But first, the hardest part, I had to invite Olivia back over for brunch. I didn't go back home. I drove to a hotel not to rest but to plan. The woman who left that house was gone. In her place was a cold, surgical strategist. The first rule of war: know your enemy. Alex, financially motivated, arrogant, believes his intelligence is superior. He needs the house equity to fund his next venture with a clean break. Olivia, driven by jealousy and a need to prove she's better. She craves Alex's money and status but is emotionally volatile. The weak link. My goal was no longer revenge. It was justice. Justice that would strip them of the very things they sought to steal: security, reputation, and peace of mind. 2 days later, I was back, cool, collected. I even managed a tired smile for Alex. My trip was relaxing. I think I needed the space. I watched his face. The tension eased from his jaw. He believed me. The arrogance was palpable. The real test came later that week when I hosted the maid of honor brunch for Olivia. My hands moved easily over the skillet, flipping perfect crepes. On the outside, I was the picture of domestic bliss, the oblivious fiancé. On the inside, I was gathering intelligence. So tell me about this new guy, Liv, I asked, pouring her coffee. I watched her hand as she reached for the sugar. The silver bracelet glittered. She rattled off a flawless lie about a handsome lawyer. I nodded, playing the role of the supportive cousin. And then, I dropped the first seed. It's funny, I mused casually. Alex was talking about that Mariners Inn hotel the other day. Apparently, his client booked it. Said it was beautiful, but so secluded. Seems like an odd place for a real estate meeting. Olivia's sugar spoon froze halfway to the cup. Her eyes flashed, a millisecond of pure panic before she forced a laugh. Oh. Yeah. I think I heard him mention that place. Probably just a private suite for a discreet meeting. She recovered quickly, but the hesitation, that brief flicker of fear, was all the confirmation I needed. She hadn't expected me to mention the hotel. I now knew the depth of their deception. My plan had to be ironclad. Alex was the target, but Olivia was the key. She was the one who would crack under pressure. I began making subtle changes. I started volunteering late at a local charity, giving myself a reason to be out of pocket and away from Alex. This wasn't a lie. It was cover. My real work was happening in a coffee shop downtown, where I was slowly, meticulously gathering my documents. I researched corporate law, forensic accounting, and property deeds. I learned about silent partners, marital assets, and prenuptial agreements. I realized that my perceived blindness was a huge tactical advantage. They spoke freely around me, confident in their secret. One rainy afternoon, I found the refinancing papers Alex needed me to sign. They were on his desk, marked for urgency. He needed my signature to release the equity, my half of the equity that would allow him to make a clean getaway. I sat at the desk. I picked up the pen. My name was waiting in bold, black print. And as I held that pen, I thought of the 2 glasses of Merlot, the silver bracelet, and Olivia's calculating eyes. I signed the papers. But not with my name. I signed them with a near-perfect forgery. A signature that would pass an initial glance but, under scrutiny, would prove to be invalid. I replaced the papers on his desk. The trap set. Weeks passed. Alex was ecstatic. He was more relaxed than I'd seen him in months. He had the signed papers. His business merger was accelerating. He was counting the minutes until he could leave me, cash-rich and commitment-free. I, in turn, was becoming closer to Olivia. I invited her on a healing spa day. While she was blissfully unaware in the sauna, I discreetly went through her unlocked phone. I wasn't looking for scandalous texts. I was looking for the address of her new apartment, the one she claimed she rented with a coworker. I found it, but the lease wasn't in her name. It was in Alex's corporate name, and the rent was being paid through a shell company I'd never heard of. My finance-minded fiancé wasn't planning a clean break. He was already building their love nest with my joint funds. I smiled to myself. They hadn't just stolen a life. They had created a paper trail that led directly back to them. And tomorrow, I was going to call the bank. But first, I had to find a use for that secret apartment key I copied from Alex's keyring. What was hiding in that secret apartment that could give me the final piece of leverage? The forged signature was my first major offensive move. It bought me time and, more importantly, it injected a fatal flaw into their flawless plan. But the weight of the charade was crushing me. Every smile I gave Alex, every shared look with Olivia, was a stone pressed against my chest. I was living two lives, the fiancé planning a wedding, and the silent executioner planning the demise of that wedding. The next morning, Alex left early, claiming an urgent meeting with his client. I knew exactly where he was going. He was checking on their love nest. I didn't call the bank yet. The papers needed to mature a little longer in their system before the hammer dropped. I had a more personal mission. I needed to see the place they built, the physical manifestation of my replacement. I drove downtown. The complex was new, glass and steel, the kind of place Alex always admired. Expensive. Exclusive. I used the copied key, the lock clicked open. The apartment was beautiful, minimalist, modern. It smelled new, sterile, and yet intensely personal. It was already fully furnished. I walked slowly through the rooms, tracing the edges of their future. There was a photo on the bedside table. Not of Alex and me. Not even of Olivia alone. It was a mock-up of the three of us, Alex, Olivia, and a future baby. It was a crude edit, but the message was clear. They weren't just planning a life, they were planning a family. That's when the strategy almost broke. It wasn't the cheating that did it. It was the cruel, ambitious projection of a life stolen. I felt the deep, cold ache of grief. They didn't want my house or my money. They wanted to erase me entirely. I regained control. The strategist returned. This wasn't a home. It was a crime scene. I wasn't looking for sentiment. I was looking for evidence. In the back of the walk-in closet, beneath a stack of freshly laundered towels, I found a small, locked metal safe. Standard issue. Nothing high-tech. I knew Alex's habits. I had already guessed his simple 4-digit code from a password hint I'd seen weeks ago. The day he closed his first major deal. The safe opened with a soft, metallic thud. Inside, there wasn't jewelry or stacks of cash. There were documents, the originals. Contracts, non-disclosure agreements, and a crucial stack of emails detailing a complex series of shell corporations Alex was using to funnel money, not just from our equity, but from his business partners. The house was just a small piece of a much larger, illegal scheme. I realized Alex wasn't just a cheat, he was a fraudster. And Olivia was either a willing accomplice or dangerously ignorant of the true depth of his deceit. I took photos of every single document, prioritizing the emails that detailed the manipulation of his investors. This was no longer just revenge for betrayal. This was protection against financial ruin and potential criminal charges for association. I left the apartment exactly as I found it, the safe locked, the towels stacked. The only trace of my visit was the data I now held. I drove straight to a secure location and transferred the files. And then, I made the call to the bank's fraud department. I have a concern regarding a recent refinancing signature. I said, my voice steady, professional. I believe there may have been an error in the execution of the document, specifically the signee's power of attorney. I used corporate language, making it sound like an administrative formality. The man on the other end was meticulous. He promised to launch a formal investigation into the validity of the signature, which, upon forensic analysis, would quickly fail. The money release was frozen. Alex believed he had his funds. Olivia believed she had her future, but I had just locked the cage. The first major twist was set. Alex would soon discover that the money he was counting on to leave me was gone. How would he react when his entire escape plan collapsed, and he had no idea why? I returned to the house, the atmosphere heavy with the unspoken tension of a ticking clock. Alex was buoyant, annoyingly so. He was closing in on his payday, and he was unbearable. He even bought me a small gift, a necklace I'd never wear. Last desperate act of guilt management. Just a little something, he said, kissing my forehead. Celebrating the future. The future was definitely coming, Alex. Just not the one you planned. I spent the next 2 days building my cover story. I became more involved in wedding planning, scheduling tastings, and venue visits. I was making myself look indispensable, making the coming collapse that much more jarring for him. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Alex was on the phone in his office, the door thankfully shut. I was pretending to organize wedding invitations in the next room. At first, his voice was impatient. Then, it became sharp. Then, it was a low, frantic whisper of disbelief. I heard snippets, taut frozen. What do you mean, invalid? I signed those papers weeks ago. He slammed the phone down. He paced for 5 minutes, swearing under his breath, before picking up the phone again and calling a different number, likely his lawyer or his bank contact. This call lasted longer, ending with a sound of sheer, unadulterated panic. He emerged from the office, pale and sweating, but still attempting composure. "Bad news," he said, forcing a smile. "Minor technical snag with the refinance. The papers didn't process correctly. We have to resubmit. It'll delay things, maybe a few weeks." I looked him straight in the eye, my face the picture of concerned empathy. "Oh, Alex, that's terrible. Is the deal in danger?" He lied effortlessly. No. Just a hiccup. Happens all the time." He immediately called Olivia. He didn't even try to hide the urgency this time. He went out to the patio. I followed stealthily, standing just inside the French doors, unseen. "Alex, it's frozen." The bank flagged the signature. "They said it's invalid." "Someone knows." "How could they know?" "Olivia, invalid? What are you talking about? Did you mess up the power of attorney? Are you sure you didn't leave those papers lying around?" I heard the shift. The immediate deflection. She was terrified, and she was already blaming him. "Alex. No, I had them secure. I think someone at the bank knows about the shell account. They're trying to sink the merger." He was looking for an external enemy. He never, for a second, suspected the oblivious fiancé. His hubris was my greatest ally. I watched him pace, running his hands through his hair. I had him reeling, and he was still blaming everyone but the person who served him breakfast. I knew his next move would be to find the easiest scapegoat, and that was usually the person he could manipulate most easily. I quietly walked back into the living room, picking up a wedding invitation. I paused. Alex was coming back inside. He looked at me, a calculated look of desperate charm in his eyes. "Honey," he said, taking my hand. "We need to talk about the wedding date. Maybe we should move it up. Just a couple of months. For the tax benefits." He wasn't moving the date up for tax benefits. He was trying to rush the commitment so he could force the sale of the house after the marriage, accessing the funds through a more complex, post-nuptial method before the fraud investigation deepened. He was trapped, and his instinct was to trap me harder. I knew I couldn't delay the retaliation much longer. He was planning to put a ring on my finger while he was signing the papers to sell our assets out from under me. I had to beat his deadline. What could I do in the next 2 weeks to not only expose them but turn their attempt to rush the wedding into their final humiliation? I agreed to rush the wedding. Enthusiastically. I knew his desperation meant the time frame was shrinking, forcing him and Olivia into more mistakes. I created a fake sense of urgency, calling vendors and setting appointments, all while my real work continued in secret. My goal now was twofold. 1. Leverage the evidence I had. 2. Turn Olivia against Alex. If they fractured, the whole operation would collapse. That night, while Alex slept, I used my security clearance. Alex had foolishly given me access to his personal hard drive years ago, to upload the crucial documents, the Shell Corporation details and the forged signature proof to a cloud server controlled by a trusted third party. I wouldn't use this evidence yet, but it was safely out of his reach. My first act of sabotage was subtle. A conversation with Olivia. We were looking at venues. I brought up Alex's financial snag. "He's been so stressed about this refinancing issue." I sighed, leaning in conspiratorially. "He's terrified it's going to hurt the merger. You know how much he invested in that." "Everything." Olivia. "Oh, he'll figure it out. He always does." She said it too quickly. Me? I hope so. But he mentioned something odd. He said the bank flagged the account because they noticed unusual large payments to an unknown third party. Something about an apartment lease downtown. I watched her face drain of color. She knew Alex had set up the apartment lease through his corporate name. She thought only they knew that detail. She stammered. "Oh, yeah. That must be. For a new associate. A temporary corporate rental. He told me about it." I smiled, a perfect, innocent smile. "Oh, good." I was worried. He seemed so concerned that the money was somehow getting tracked back to his personal assets. I told him he should never mix personal and business. I had successfully planted the idea that Alex's sloppy handling of the corporate finances, specifically the lease for their apartment, was the reason their entire plan was sinking. Doubt was a virus. Alex, meanwhile, was getting desperate. He started pressing me to visit his lawyer to sign new refinancing papers. I agreed immediately. I went to the lawyer's office, played the role of the devoted, if slightly clueless, fiancé. I signed the documents, this time using my legitimate signature. But before I did, I quickly and discreetly slipped a tiny, custom-made microdrive into the hinge of the lawyer's conference room table, perfectly hidden. This wasn't a recorder. It was a file uploader, designed to siphon off the Wi-Fi network's data, specifically the internal communication logs concerning Alex's property and financial movements. I needed to see who Alex and his lawyer were communicating with outside of the bank. The pace quickened. The wedding date was set for 1 month from now. Alex was smug, believing he had outmaneuvered the hiccup. I was sitting with Olivia, reviewing the color palette for the reception. She was tense, constantly checking her phone. "Are you sure Alex is okay with the dark blue?" she asked, her voice tight. "Yes," I replied calmly. "He wants everything to be perfect. He told me he's even moving some of his secret investments to a new, safer account. Something about protecting his assets before the marriage." This was a total fabrication. But it was designed to play on Olivia's growing fear that Alex was putting his own financial security ahead of hers. Olivia snapped. She stood up abruptly. "I need some air. I'm sorry. I have to go." She left without another word. I checked my hidden drive later that night. It had captured a critical communication. Alex's lawyer had secretly secured the apartment lease in Olivia's maiden name, not Alex's corporate name, as a contingency to protect Alex from criminal liability. The ultimate betrayal wasn't Alex cheating on me. It was Alex betraying Olivia to protect himself. And now I knew where the fracture point was. I had 2 weeks until the wedding. How would I use the knowledge that Alex was setting up Olivia to take the fall to completely destroy their alliance? Alex's selfishness was the fatal weakness in their bond. I had to make sure Olivia understood that she wasn't his partner. She was his insurance policy. My approach was clinical. I wouldn't confront her. I would guide her to the truth. I called Olivia the next day, playing the role of the distressed fiancé. "Olivia, I need your help. Alex is acting strange. He's talking about a prenup. He said it's standard, but he keeps mentioning that I need to protect my assets from corporate liability." Olivia was instantly defensive. "He's just being smart. He has a lot on the line." "I know," I said, my voice heavy with feigned confusion. "But why did his lawyer send me a confidential document by mistake?" "It's a copy of the lease agreement for that downtown apartment. The one he said was for a corporate associate." I didn't wait for her to respond. I just kept talking, injecting controlled panic into my voice. "The funny thing is, the person listed on the lease isn't his associate. It's listed under a completely different name. Your old maiden name, Lavinia Hayes. I didn't even know he had that information." I waited. The line was silent for a long time. I knew the information was sinking in. Olivia, thinking the apartment was secured in Alex's name, suddenly realized Alex had exposed her to the legal and financial fallout of the lease, shielding himself entirely. "Olivia. What? What are you talking about? That's impossible. He told me he put it under the shell company. Send me that document. Right now." "I can't send it," I said, maintaining the facade of panic. I shredded it immediately. I didn't want Alex to see I'd opened it. I was so confused, but I remember thinking, why would he use your name? It looked like he was securing the asset under your name so that if anything went wrong with his corporate accounts, you would be the one liable for the rental agreement. I had to hammer the point home, making the betrayal sound like self-preservation on Alex's part. "It just seems so cold, Liv. Like he's protecting himself from something. You know, making sure he has a clean financial escape if his merger fails." Olivia realizes Alex has set her up as the fall guy for the corporate apartment, making her financially and legally vulnerable, while he remains shielded by the corporation. The line went dead. Olivia had hung up. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. The wedge was placed and the hammer was about to fall. I had given her the information and let her draw the only logical conclusion. Alex was willing to sacrifice her for his financial security. Later that evening, Alex came home, furious. He wasn't mad at me, he was mad at the world. "Olivia is acting insane," he muttered, pacing. "She just cancelled the venue tasting. She thinks I'm trying to sabotage her. She said I'm moving the money around to leave her with nothing." I offered him a glass of scotch, acting as the supportive fiancé. She's probably just stressed, honey. Maid of honor duties are a lot. She's high-strung. He calmed down, nodding, believing my diagnosis. He was relieved that I was still oblivious, still on his side. The alliance was broken. Olivia's fear would now drive her actions, not her love for Alex. But I knew she wouldn't come to me. She would go straight to Alex's most vulnerable point. The wedding was 3 weeks away. Now that they were fighting, what would be the first thing Olivia exposed to Alex, thinking it would save her, but instead, would unknowingly move my revenge plot forward? The silence after Olivia hung up was the sweetest sound I had heard in months. It confirmed the fracture. I had given her the key to Alex's heart-to-heart made of ledgers and liabilities, and she finally realized the cost of entry. She wasn't fighting for love. She was fighting for survival. 2 days passed. Alex was constantly on the phone, his voice tight, his temper short. He stopped trying to be charming and became openly stressed. He canceled all wedding preparation meetings, claiming corporate emergency. I remained his calm harbor. I cooked his favorite meals. I listened, and I nodded with manufactured sympathy. I was the last person he could trust, and that trust was my greatest tactical asset. He finally broke the silence over dinner. Olivia is out, he stated flatly. She's not coming to the wedding. She's causing problems. She's threatening to go to my partners about the merger funding. Said I cut her out. I leaned in, my face a mask of concern. What? Alex, that's insane. Why would she do that? Alex, because she's crazy. She thinks I was trying to use her. You know, set her up. He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Ridiculous. I simply lowered my eyes. I knew it wasn't ridiculous. It was the truth. Their relationship, the very thing that betrayed me, was now my instrument of destruction. I had the financial evidence, the forged signature, and the knowledge of his larger fraud. Now, I needed the cinematic finish. My plan shifted from financial exposure to total social and professional obliteration. Alex and Olivia valued reputation, status, and the appearance of success above all else. I wouldn't just take their money, I would take their audience. That night, I accessed the data I had siphoned from his lawyer's office. I wasn't looking for more fraud, I was looking for the guest list. I found it, a meticulously curated list of all the major real estate investors, corporate partners, media personalities, and society figures they had invited to our wedding. They were planning a publicity coup, a display of power and wealth. The event they designed to elevate their status would be the arena of their downfall. But I needed one more detail. One piece of evidence that would be impossible to deny, even to his most loyal business contacts. I needed to prove that the infidelity and fraud were concurrent, showing a deep pattern of cynical manipulation. I went back to the apartment Alex and Olivia shared. I knew they were fighting. Olivia hadn't been there in days. I walked straight to the bedside table. I remembered the mock-up photo of their future family. I took the photo. Underneath the photo, I found a digital frame they had tossed into a drawer. I plugged it in. It was a rotating slideshow of their secret relationship, trips they took while Alex claimed to be on client business, intimate moments, and, crucially, a series of photos taken in Alex's office, the very office where he plotted the financial fraud. One photo was key, Alex and Olivia, laughing, holding a pen over the refinancing papers. The date stamp was before I had signed them. It proved they were rehearsing the fraud together, and the original betrayal was a coordinated effort. I copied the images, leaving the digital frame and the original mock-up photo. I wouldn't destroy their memory, I would use it as a weapon. With the financial documents, the forged signature proof, the digital evidence of their conspiracy, and the prestigious guest list, the trap was complete. I called my contact, a meticulous high-end private investigator I'd hired under a non-disclosure agreement. It's time, I said, my voice steady. The final piece of the puzzle is ready. My plan wasn't just to expose them at the wedding. It was to use the wedding as a stage to present the evidence to the right people, Alex's investors and the media. I didn't want a shouting match. I wanted a press release. The next day, Alex would ask me to finalize the seating chart for the wedding. He would try to sit his most important business partner, Mr. Henderson, at the head table. I would agree, enthusiastically. But he wouldn't realize that Mr. Henderson was the man who was about to receive an anonymous, encrypted package containing all the evidence of Alex's massive, career-ending fraud. The stage was set, the evidence was distributed, and the final hour of my fake engagement was about to begin. The midpoint reversal was about to hit, and Alex wouldn't even see the punch coming. The wedding was in 2 weeks. Every interaction with Alex was fraught with unspoken tension. He was juggling the frozen funds, the angry investors he was stalling, and the now hostile Olivia. He looked haggard. I looked serene. "I need you to confirm this seating chart, honey," Alex said, handing me a printout. "Henderson needs to be at table 1. He's crucial to the next merger." I circled the table in red pen, adding a little smiley face. "Done. He'll be happy." He sighed, relieved. He believed he was still steering the ship, unaware that the ship was already full of holes, and I was holding the plug. I had sent the evidence to Mr. Henderson's private email, routed through layers of VPNs and proxy servers to ensure anonymity. The package was simple: a summary of the financial fraud, the photos from the apartment, and a copy of the forged signature proof. I included one line: "Your partner's true commitment is not to you but to deceit." I didn't have to wait long. I was at the gym, doing a meaningless cardio workout, when my phone vibrated. It was a news alert from a major California business publication. The headline was stark: "Financial fraud investigation rocks. Alex's company name, key partner questioned." I knew it was Henderson. He had received the information, panicked, and immediately gone to the authorities and the press to protect his own assets and reputation. Alex's whole world was collapsing, and he wouldn't even know who pulled the string. I rushed home, feigning distress. Alex's office door was locked. I heard yelling. Not his usual frustrated yelling, but a desperate, animalistic roar. I knocked softly. "Alex? What's going on?" He opened the door. His shirt was untucked, his hair a mess. His eyes were wide with pure terror. "The merger," he gasped, grabbing my arm. "It's over. They froze everything. Henderson, he leaked everything to the press. They're saying I defrauded the investors." But how did he know about the shell companies? No one knew. Only me. He was spiraling. I had to maintain my composure. "Alex, calm down. Who is they? What are you talking about?" He thrust his phone at me. "The article. It detailed the complex network of shell corporations, even mentioning the unusual real estate transactions, a direct reference to the apartment." He began to search. Frantically, he tore through his office, looking for the physical documents he thought were safe. He searched the safe, throwing the few remaining items across the room. The apartment lease. Did I leave the key here? I need to get the records out of there. Then, the realization hit him. The last time he saw the key was when he put it on his chain. He looked at me, his eyes zeroing in on my purse. He didn't ask. He lunged. He tore my purse open, scattering my wallet and makeup, searching for a sign, any sign that I was involved. He found nothing. I stood there, silent, radiating calm. "Alex, it was Olivia. She did this. She was afraid I was going to leave her with the debt. She had access to everything. She told Henderson." He had finally landed on the wrong conclusion. He was pointing the finger at his co-conspirator. Alex didn't realize the depth of the betrayal. He was wrong. It wasn't Olivia. It was me. And the full weight of that reversal, that his most trusted ally was his executioner, was about to land. He looked at the wedding dress hanging on the closet door, the perfect white symbol of his lie. The wedding wasn't cancelled. He needed it now more than ever to save face. He would go through with it. And that was exactly what I was counting on. But what was the one final action I needed to take to ensure the entire world knew the truth before he said "I do"? Alex was broken, but he was still dangerous. He was convinced Olivia had betrayed him to save herself, and he was determined to proceed with the wedding as a show of stability and strength. He looked at me, his last anchor. "We are getting married," he stated, not asked. "This marriage happens. It shows my partners that I have stability. They can't touch our personal assets." I nodded. The perfect, supportive fiancé. "Of course, Alex. We'll show them. We'll show her." This was the core of my plan. I needed him to walk down that aisle, not for love, but for money and reputation. He had to be publicly invested in the lie before it was revealed. The execution began. I called my contact, the private investigator, and gave him the final instructions. He was to attend the wedding, disguised as a family friend, armed with a briefcase. My final move was to ensure Olivia was present. I needed her to witness the total destruction of their shared future. I knew Olivia was hiding out, terrified and confused, believing Alex was preparing to frame her. I sent her a short cryptic message from an anonymous burner phone. Alex is proceeding with the wedding to secure his assets and publicly frame you for the financial failure. He will use his vows to profess his loyalty to his family, securing his financial future while you take the fall. Don't let him win. This message wasn't a warning, it was bait. It appealed directly to her fear and her ego. It confirmed her worst suspicion that Alex was choosing survival over her. The day before the wedding felt like an out-of-body experience. The caterers arrived, the flowers were delivered, and the mansion was transformed into a paradise of deception. I had a moment alone, standing in the living room, watching the California sunset. I wasn't happy. I was cold. My heart was hardened by the planning. I had become the architect of their ruin. I was a good person, but this experience had taught me that sometimes, justice demands a temporary wickedness. I checked the items in my clutch, a tissue, my lip gloss and a small, secure flash drive containing a single high-resolution video file. The morning of the wedding. Pure chaos. I was serene. I was in my dressing room. The white dress pristine, the hair and makeup flawless. I looked like a bride, a victim, a fairy tale princess. No one suspected the venom beneath the veil. A knock on the door. It was the private investigator, posing as a distant uncle. He handed me the briefcase. It's ready. The delivery has been confirmed. Stick to the script. I will, I whispered. Then, Alex's mother, a woman who had always treated me like a daughter, came in, tears in her eyes. Oh, honey, you are going to be wonderful. Don't worry about the mess with Alex's business. You are his rock. I smiled sweetly. Thank you. He needs me. The ceremony began. The music swelled. I walked down the aisle, past the rows of high society figures, past the smug face of Alex. He was standing there, the picture of a man saving his empire. He winked at me, a silent message. We survived. And then I saw her. Hiding in the back, behind the last row of guests, shrouded in a large dark hat. Olivia. She took the bait. She was there to disrupt him, to save herself. I reached Alex at the altar. We stood, ready to exchange vows. Alex opened his mouth to begin his performance. But before he could speak the lie, I took the microphone from the officiant's hand. The entire crowd was silent, focused on the bride. What was the first thing I would say that would stop the wedding and force Alex to realize I was behind everything? The silence was deafening. Alex looked at me, confusion, replacing his smugness. The crowd shifted, wondering if this was part of the ceremony, a modern, dramatic touch. I held the microphone. My hand wasn't shaking. My voice, when it came, was clear, calm, and utterly devoid of emotion. Before we exchange vows, Alex, I began, my voice amplified over the speakers. There's a tradition I want to honor. A moment of truth. Alex whispered urgently, what are you doing? Give me the mic. I ignored him. I looked directly out at the assembly of guests, his investors, his partners, the media. Then I looked past them, locking eyes with the figure in the back row. Olivia, this is not just a wedding, I continued. It's a celebration of commitment. And I want to thank the two people who showed me the true meaning of commitment, my fiancé, Alex, and my cousin, Olivia. The crowd murmured. Alex's eyes went wide, switching from me to the back of the room. Olivia, realizing she'd been exposed, flinched, pulling her hat lower. I nodded to my private investigator, who stood up in the front row and opened the briefcase, pulling out a large flat-screen monitor. He silently placed it on a nearby podium, connecting it to the venue's projector system. You see, I said, my voice rising, commitment isn't just about love. It's about collaboration. It's about working together toward a common goal, even if that goal is to steal a future built on lies. The projector flared to life. The screen showed the series of photos from the hidden apartment, Alex and Olivia, the mock-up baby photo, and the one of them laughing over the fraudulent refinancing documents. A collective gasp swept through the guests. Alex lunged toward the monitor. Turn it off. This is insane. The officiant was frozen. The music had stopped. I held Alex back with one hand, maintaining my perfect posture. Insane? No, Alex. This is a business presentation. This is the truth you fought so hard to hide. I looked at the investors, specifically Mr. Henderson, who was now standing, his face contorted in rage. Mr. Henderson, to you and the rest of the partners, Alex didn't just defraud you. He used my name, our joint assets, and a forged signature to protect his own corporate fraud. The evidence you received this morning, those shell corporations, they were being funded by the equity he tried to steal from me. Alex turned on me, his face crimson. All pretense of a supportive fiancé vanished. He was cornered. Alex, you signed the papers. You have no idea what you're talking about. You are a hysterical, crazy woman. You're ruining everything. I signed the papers. Yes, I said, a cold smile finally reaching my eyes. But I also signed them 3 weeks before you told me. I signed them to validate a date you needed to make a clean break. The signature you accepted as valid, Alex. It was a forgery. A deliberate, meticulous forgery. I pulled the actual, legitimate refinancing documents, the one I signed in the lawyer's office just 2 weeks ago, from my clutch. These are the real papers. They are notarized, and they legally transfer my ownership share of the home to a trust fund that protects my assets from your pending criminal liability. He stared at the document, utterly defeated. His whole plan, the forged signature, the rush to the wedding, the illusion of stability, was dismantled by the person he thought he had successfully deceived. I raised the microphone one last time, my voice ringing with finality. The merger is dead. The marriage is over. And the next time you try to build a future, Alex, remember that the foundation of a good life is not greed but honesty. I walk away with my assets and my dignity. You walk away with nothing but the truth publicly broadcast. But I wasn't finished. I still had to give the final gift to Olivia, who was now creeping toward the exit. How would I ensure she got her deserved piece of the chaos before she escaped? Asterisk asterisk. The venue plunged into absolute chaos. Mr. Henderson and 2 other investors were already on their phones, calling their own legal teams. Alex's mother was weeping. Photographers were scrambling to capture the screen and the devastated groom. Alex lunged at me, but the private investigator quickly stepped in, placing himself between us. Alex, you evil bitch. You set me up. You planned this. I learned from the best, I replied calmly. You taught me everything I needed to know about calculated betrayal. But the chaos provided an unexpected complication. Olivia, seeing Alex totally distracted and destroyed, made her move. She darted out the back door, attempting to vanish into the streets of California. My focus had been on Alex. Allowing Olivia to escape was a setback. She was an important part of the resolution. She needed to know the full extent of Alex's betrayal of her. I spotted a journalist, a young woman from a major paper, taking rapid-fire notes. I grabbed her arm. Wait, I instructed the PI. Alex is finished. We need to tie off the loose ends. I stepped back up to the microphone, addressing the now stunned crowd. I have one more piece of information for the woman who just fled. The one who believed she was replacing me. I turned to the camera, which was still running, and addressed the empty back door. Olivia, you fled because you thought Alex set you up to take the fall for the apartment lease. You were right. But here's the twist, Olivia. The apartment was only half the lie. Alex was never going to marry you. He was going to use you as a scapegoat, then discard you. I pulled out the digital frame photos again. These photos, the ones showing your deep commitment, were also sent to the bank's fraud division. They were submitted by Alex's lawyer this morning as proof that you were the one driving the unusual real estate transactions. They were intended to shift all focus, all liability, all potential felony charges, onto you. I paused, letting the cold horror sink in for any journalists present, and hopefully, for Olivia, who was likely hiding nearby, still listening. He didn't just use me for money. He was going to use you for his freedom. The final document I signed, Alex, I said, looking back at the now detained groom, also contained a statement that any assets not explicitly included were subject to review for damages, including the shell company funds you poured into her apartment. The police arrived, sirens wailing, prompted by the early news reports and Mr. Henderson's frantic calls. Alex was quickly surrounded. As he was being led away in handcuffs, he screamed one last, desperate, defeated word, karma. I turned to the waiting journalist. Karma, I repeated, my voice calm. Karma is just the balance sheet of the universe. I was simply the accountant. I took off the diamond ring, the symbol of the lie, and placed it on the podium next to the discarded microphone. I left the briefcase containing all the physical evidence with the private investigator for the police. I had executed the plan flawlessly. Alex was detained. His business was under investigation. His reputation was ruined. Olivia was exposed and legally vulnerable. I was free. I walked out of the mansion, through the throng of photographers and gawkers, my white wedding dress contrasting with the cold, hard certainty of my action. I didn't look back. I drove away, not to my house but to a quiet, seaside Airbnb I had rented weeks ago. I was financially secure and emotionally free, but as I watched the sun set over the Pacific, a strange feeling settled over me. I had achieved victory, but I hadn't yet achieved peace. The final layer of betrayal, the one I hadn't planned for, was about to reveal itself, demanding a different kind of justice. 1 week later, the headlines had faded from the front page but were still a major story in the financial columns. Alex was out on bail, humiliated and fighting for his life against corporate and criminal charges. Olivia had vanished. I was in seclusion, preparing my testimony. The quiet was immense. I was surrounded by the ocean and the sound of my own thoughts. The anger had subsided, replaced by a deep, weary sense of emptiness. I had dismantled my old life with surgical precision, but I hadn't built a new one. I realized I hadn't just sought revenge. I had sought to understand why. Why did Alex and Olivia feel entitled to destroy me? I received a registered package from the lawyer's office, not Alex's, but the one handling my newly established trust fund. It was a single, innocuous-looking manila envelope marked personal and confidential, do not open until post-resolution. Inside, there was a single handwritten letter. It wasn't from Alex, it was from Olivia. She wrote from a safe location, desperate and remorseful. She confessed everything, the whole timeline, the jealousy, the plan to exploit Alex's greed. But one line stopped me cold. She wrote, "The cheating was real, but it started because Alex was trying to break the engagement. He told me he couldn't marry you because he found out about your secret." I reread the line. My secret. I had no secrets from Alex, not major ones. I had been an open book. I flipped the page. Olivia explained. 2 years ago, I had been seriously ill, a prolonged hospitalization that required Alex to make difficult decisions. I had blocked the memories of the worst parts due to trauma. She wrote, "Alex was financially dependent on your father's business contracts, which were contingent on your marriage. When you were sick, he found the documents. The truth is, you can't have children. The illness caused permanent damage. Alex discovered this when he accessed your medical files. He didn't want the marriage, not because of the cheating, but because he couldn't have an heir to secure his long-term contract benefit. His betrayal was not just greed. It was him trying to break free without telling you the heartbreaking truth about your health." The world spun. I had believed the core betrayal was about money and lust. It was, but it was layered over a far deeper, more personal truth about my own body that Alex hadn't had the courage to tell me. He chose to destroy my life with a lie rather than break my heart with the truth. I sat there, the ocean air suddenly feeling suffocating. I wasn't just betrayed. I was pitied, then ruthlessly exploited. My revenge against Alex and Olivia was complete. But this new, deeper betrayal, the one of cowardice and cruelty, demanded a different kind of justice. It wasn't financial, it was existential. I had destroyed his career. Now, I had to destroy the one thing he cared about more than money, his legacy. I picked up my phone. I didn't call the police. I didn't call my lawyer. I called my father. The man who had unknowingly tied his corporate legacy to a man who would ruin his daughter. I had to reveal the whole truth now, not to punish Alex further, but to truly free myself from the remnants of his world. And the action my father took, based on this new information, would be the final, irreversible blow. I drove north, to my father's corporate headquarters. I didn't call ahead. I walked into his office, a completely changed woman. I wore a simple black dress, the opposite of the white gown I had worn 2 weeks earlier. I laid the letter on his mahogany desk. I laid out the medical documents and the corporate contracts that linked Alex's future to mine. I spoke calmly, clinically, without tears. I told him everything, the forgery, the shell companies, the public humiliation, and the secret reason Alex wanted out. My father, a powerful, stoic man, read the documents in silence. When he finished, he didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me with pride. You didn't break. You fought. My father had a vast network, and his influence was corporate, not criminal. He could deliver the final devastating blow that Alex feared most. Father, the contracts are ironclad. The penalty clauses for corporate fraud and breach of trust are severe. He was trying to inherit my goodwill. He won't inherit anything now. He picked up the phone. His first call was to the managing partner of his legal counsel. His second was to the board of Alex's largest business partner, the one who wasn't Mr. Henderson. Within 24 hours, Alex's business was not just under investigation, it was being dissolved. His assets were seized not just by the court, but by a barrage of civil lawsuits and corporate penalties initiated by my father's legal team, all based on the evidence I provided. This was justice delivered from the highest seat of power. It was clean, corporate, and irreversible. I didn't watch the news. The revenge was complete. I had taken back my future, my money, and my reputation. But the real turning point was the secret I learned about my own body. I had to grieve the life I thought I was losing, the life with a man I loved, and the life I thought I could build. The fact that Alex's greed revealed my inability to have children was a strange, cruel gift. It forced me to face a truth he was too cowardly to give me. I decided that my worth was not tied to my fertility, my marital status, or the size of my home. My worth was in my resilience. I called a realtor. I put the house I had fought so hard to keep from him up for sale. It was a beautiful golden cage, and I needed to tear it down. I donated Alex's clothes, deleted all our photos, and closed the final chapter of that life. 1 week later, I received a surprising email. It was from Olivia. She hadn't been charged, thanks to my strategic actions, but she was ruined and had moved to a different state. Her email was not an apology, it was a request. She had an old box of Alex's financial documents she'd taken as leverage. She asked if I wanted them. I didn't need the documents. The war was over. I had won. But Olivia's request gave me one final chance to close the emotional loop. Not with vengeance, but with a surprising act of peace. Would I take the high road and refuse her, or would I use this final contact to deliver a message about forgiveness and what kind of life she could still build? I wrote back to Olivia. I didn't acknowledge her plea for help or her fear. I only addressed the documents. I don't need the documents. My legal action is complete, and justice has been served. I would suggest you shred them. The time for leverage is over. The time for silence is over. Then, I added one final, uncharacteristic sentence. The reason Alex betrayed me was not just for the money he was getting. It was for the money he feared losing. His only love was greed. Don't let his sickness become your legacy. I hit send. I immediately blocked her email. I closed the door completely. My emotional ties to both of them were finally severed. I had a final, personal action to take. I had kept the silver bracelet, the one Alex had bought for Olivia, the one that confirmed the initial lie. It was a constant, sharp reminder of the turning point. I drove to the cliff where Alex had proposed. The same spot overlooking the vast, indifferent Pacific Ocean. I stood there, holding the bracelet. It wasn't a symbol of pain anymore. It was a symbol of my own transformation. The person who received that proposal was soft, trusting, and naive. The woman standing there now was none of those things. I didn't throw it into the sea. I slipped it into the pocket of the black dress I was wearing. I wouldn't discard the reminder. I would carry it. It was the proof that I had faced the darkness and survived. The house sold quickly. I took a small, beautiful apartment near the water in a new city. A place with no memories, just light. I started a new venture, using the secure funds from the trust to start a consulting firm that specialized in financial security for women. I used my knowledge of fraud and corporate law, all learned from my painful education, to help others avoid similar traps. I realized the true resolution was not external. It was internal. Alex and Olivia had tried to take my life, but in doing so, they gave me something more powerful: self-reliance. I didn't need a partner or a perfect family to be whole. I was the author of my own peace. I was sitting in my new office, the afternoon sun streaming in. I was alone, but not lonely. I was drafting my first major client contract. A small, quiet knock on the door. It was my father. He looked at my new space, my confident demeanor. He smiled. "You look good," he said. "Like you finally figured out what you're worth." He handed me a small box. Inside was a key. It was the key to the family's beach house, the one I had loved since childhood. "I signed the house over to you," he said. "No strings, no corporate clauses. Just yours. You earned it. Now go build your own legacy." I realized that while Alex and Olivia thought they had destroyed me, they had inadvertently forced the hand that gave me true freedom, financial security, and a path forward I never would have found in the perfect life they stole. The story was ending, but the final subtle moral takeaway, the lesson for the audience, had yet to be delivered. What was the quiet truth that would resonate the deepest? I stood on the porch of the beach house, the key warm in my hand. I looked at the vastness of the sea. I was financially independent, professionally fulfilled, and finally, emotionally healed. Alex's fate was sealed by the courts. Olivia's fate was sealed by her fear and guilt. They were gone. Their punishment was the loss of everything they valued. My resolution was simpler. I learned to forgive the former me, the one who was blind and trusting. I opened my laptop. I pulled up a blank document. I wanted to write the end of the story, not for the court, not for the investors, but for myself and for anyone watching. The biggest secret I learned wasn't about forgery or shell companies. It was this: you can't revenge your way to peace. Revenge was a necessary tool to regain control, to achieve justice, and to protect my future. It was the fire that cleared the ground. But peace? Peace is the garden you plant after the fire. The true victory was not seeing Alex in handcuffs. It was realizing that even without a perfect marriage, a perfect body, or a perfect life, I was stronger, wiser, and more powerful than I ever was inside that golden cage. My voice softens, becoming reflective and close. I look at the silver bracelet in my pocket. I take it out, turning it in the light. It was the start of the lie. Now, it's just a piece of metal. The moral? Betrayal hurts, but sometimes, the people who hurt you the most are just too small for the life you were meant to live. They are simply obstacles on your path to self-worth. Don't fight for them. Fight for the person you were meant to become. My life wasn't stolen. It was liberated. This was my story. It was about cheating, betrayal, and revenge. But ultimately, it was about finding the silence, the strength, and the power to write my own ending. You watched 4 hours of this story. You saw the betrayal, the pain, the strategy, and the justice. You came here because you know what that cold pit in your stomach feels like. If you haven't subscribed by now, ask yourself why. Are you afraid of confronting the full truth of your own life? Don't let fear make you a silent witness. Click subscribe now. And for those of you who refuse to subscribe, I want to hear it. Go into the comments and lament. Tell me why you're still choosing silence, still choosing the darkness. Tell me why you're still afraid of your own power. This is the last chapter. Go. Be honest. Be brave. Thank you for watching my resolution. I wish you the strength to find yours.